If you want to have a disastrous rollout of a very large piece of software, do a bunch of customizations. Try to make the software work the way your procedures exist. That's the recipe for disaster. And that's what we're doing here.
Welcome to the Flourishing in Cannabis podcast, where I bridge the gap between the plant and technology while focusing on the human aspects of the industry. I'm your host, Vien Trinh, the Director of Marketing at Flourish Software. Now, I'm super stoked to have this guest today. We've been trying to link up for a minute, so I am pumped to get going. He holds his law degree from the University of North Carolina. He hosts Ask Me Anything About Cannabis Legalization in New York on LinkedIn at 4:20 Eastern Time, with over 20,000 followers, hailing from the concrete jungle, New York City, my man, Jeffrey Hoffman. What's up, brother? How have you been?
I've been excellent, my friend. I'm glad. I remember when we first talked about this a while back, and it's awesome now. Yeah, it's been a while. It's awesome to now be here with you. It's awesome. Thanks for having me.
Hey, we've been wanting to do this for a long time, and you've been in my radars, my line of sight, and you've been doing some great things in New York. And I just want to let the audience get to know you a little bit. Tell us about your past in cannabis, your early experiences. How did you get started in this big bad industry that we're doing now?
Sure. So I've been getting high since Reagan, as I like to tell folks. That puts it in the 80s.
Say no to drugs. Say no to drugs. This is your Brain on Drugs campaign back in the day.
I remember watching MTV in the 80s. And the commercial, I'm Gen X, and it was absolutely the focus of that whole campaign. We'd be watching MTV, and in between the Judas Priest videos and all the other associated insanity that MTV would be having, it would be this is your brain, this is drugs, this is your brain on drugs. And for folks that have never seen this, it's addictive. Yeah. Go to your YouTube and take a look at it where they drop the egg into the frying pan. Obviously, that did not have the desired impact on me. So I started getting high in high school. A couple of guys took me out into the woods, and they said, for most people, I think they do not get actually high the first time they smoke. It usually is the next time. They either do it right or your body's got to get primed for the endocannabinoids. I don't know what it is, but just generally, that does seem to be the experience. If somebody knows exactly why that is, let me know. But they took me out in the woods, and they said, you're not gonna feel anything this first time, but the next time you come out, you'll thank us. And so that was pretty funny. And just really from an early start there, which I think predicated some of what I do now, it was always so weird to me that we put people in jail for consuming a plant, right? Like I saw, obviously I was a rambunctious teenager, so did my fair share of underage drinking as well. And it just seemed to me that the alcohol was so much worse for people, and the outcomes were so much worse, and the bad things that would happen to people related to alcohol were so much worse than those related to cannabis. So it never made a lot of sense to me that one of those substances gets celebrated in our society, and we have ads during the Super Bowl for one of them, and the other one is considered this horrible, massively Schedule 1 illegal thing, and just we must put everyone in jail that even remotely touches it. And so I started out as a consumer, as most folks did, and not that I was any kind of drug kingpin or anything, but I do think I bring a bit of a unique perspective to the legal side of what I do, and that most lawyers in the profession, maybe they consume a little bit now, but this wasn't really part of their life before. They weren't part of the industry. Their only connection to it was perhaps they were criminal attorneys dealing with cannabis before, and now they're dealing with the legal industry. That's it. At the time, I was at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, down in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, in the Triangle down there, and it just in various places around Chapel Hill, in the attic crawl space next to a bedroom, or the extra storage space above the storage space next to the outside deck, or just wherever we'd be doing it, we'd be growing a couple of pot plants. And it wasn't like we were growing enough to really sell, but it was certainly enough for us to consume or do part of our consumption. Obviously, we had to meter out the rest of it from those QPs that we bought. And then because back in the day, you could actually go to jail for 30 days in Chapel Hill at the time for just a joint, right? And get into real legal trouble for cannabis. So one of the things that we did so that we wouldn't have cannabis on our persons once parties or clubs would get busted is we made RSO. And we were making it before anybody called it RSO. No disrespect to Mr. RS, but this was 1989, 1990. Nobody was calling it RSO at the time. And so the reason we did it is what we would do is we would make it so that it was, and I always forget whether highly viscous means it's very loose or very thick, whichever way it is. We made it so that it was loose enough that you could dip a cigarette in it. And so what we would do is we take a fresh pack of cigarettes, you would dip the first cigarette out of that pack into the RSO and let it just soak into that cigarette. And then you would go to the club or the party or wherever you were going that night. And that would be the first thing you would smoke. And then you would just be hammered. Like you wouldn't even really need to drink the rest of the night. You'd just be hammered because you could imagine smoking a full cigarette infused with RSO, what that'll do to you. And then when the party inevitably got busted or raided by the cops or whatever happened, you weren't at risk. If you were, as long as you were over 21 for the alcohol you might be consuming, or really the cops then didn't care. They were more about the illicit substances because it was a college campus and they knew what was going on with the alcohol. They would look to you and you were clearly stoned out of your mind. And they're like, all right, we got to search you now. Just, if you want to just tell me where the weed is, the cops, what they do, just tell me where the weed is and we're going to go easy on you. If you make us try to find it, it's going to be rubber for you. Go ahead and find it, bro. If you can find it, it's on you because we're not holding it anymore. We smoked it all in that first cigarette that we had dipped in the RSO. So that was my original road to cannabis. And then as I became more of an adult and started thinking more about the ramifications of what we're doing as a society. And as I got to be an attorney, I didn't become an attorney until about 10 years after all this. It really bothered me how we were dealing with this substance in our society, and especially how we were dealing with people that don't look like me, right? People that look like me would usually get, if you had some weed, it would get taken and you would get the finger shaken at you, and that would be about it. But if you didn't look like me and you know exactly what I'm talking about, that was often the path to certainly an arrest record and probably a conviction record. And so I've always, for whatever you want to say, lobbied for it, supported people, gave legal service to people that had criminal issues as much as I could. I wasn't really a criminal attorney, but just helped folks out with as much as I could. But then finally here, when New York legalized, they gave us a very powerful mechanism to clear up everybody's convictions. New York has probably the best expungement statute of any state in the country as far as what the state is supposed to do to folks that have cannabis convictions. If you have a misdemeanor, the state's already supposed to have expunged it. Go and get your certificate of disposition so that you can see that's happened. If you have a felony, we do have to file something in court, and the DA that originally convicted you can oppose it. In the more conservative parts of the state, they're opposing it like crazy, and we're having to appeal that stuff, and we're eventually winning, which is great. But just the fact that the law is now on my side to deal with it. It's no longer, this is illegal and we're going to put people in jail for it. The law is now on my side as far as helping people clean up their record. So that's something that's very important to me. We do that through the Cannabis Justice and Equity Initiative. That's a nonprofit that I started with a professor named Terrence Coffey at NYU. And the two big things that we're doing there is, one, these kind of justice efforts as far as getting people's records cleared up, making sure that employers and landlords are not improperly dealing with people that may have previously been convicted for cannabis, right? You're not supposed to use that when it comes to their housing or to their employment applications. And doing workforce development, right? Getting people jobs in the industry. And so it's really gone a full 180 from me, where, back in the day I was, again, it's not like I was moving tonnage or anything that other folks were doing, but in my own way, participating in the illicit market. And it's now come 180 to where the law is on my side, and I'm using that to help people clear their records and help people get into the industry. It's really mind-boggling that this is what we've been able to do, but here we are.
Here we are, man. Here we are. To recap all that, that's some great content you just provided to me. But love the story about how you got into making sure that you had the tip and the meals all covered for your dates, using some supply and demand, some economics right there, and then creating your own pre-infused spliffs back in the day sounds pretty cool. And then now you're here trying to help with the racial disparity when it comes to criminal justice when it comes to cannabis. Lots of great things, and you said some great things about New York overall. That their expungement program is really great. But being in New York and I'm here out in sunny side San Diego, California, originally from Chicago. We've been talking about things that the state has done well, just based on your experiences being in the industry for X number of years over there in New York. Well, why don't we open it up and talk about things that maybe could be done a little bit better? Some of the things that we're seeing right now.
Yeah. So the big picture is that when you're a regulator, if your regulations don't match the law, people are going to sue you and win and get what they want, not what you want. And unfortunately, New York has had a really big problem with that. Now, I will say that New York has done a better job of attempting to have an equitable market in how they do their licensing than any other state, full stop. New York has blown every other state out of the water as far as their efforts to have justice-involved individuals and folks that are typically not the people that get cannabis licenses to get cannabis licenses into their hands. Part of the challenge, though, that we've had with that is along the way, a lot of the regulations have not matched the law, and in fact, in some ways have just violated other laws, including the U.S. Constitution. Just had a very recent case get decided by the Second Circuit, where the Second Circuit said there's this thing called the Commerce Clause in the United States, and one of the components of it is that a state cannot make rules for citizens of its state that disenfranchise citizens of other states. So, for example, where this got originally rooted in cannabis and now it's made its way to New York, is the state of Maine tried to make it a requirement that if you wanted to get a medical license in the state of Maine, you had to be a citizen of Maine. And people sued over that, and Maine lost at the district court level and then lost again at the circuit court level, the appeals court level. The court said very clearly there's this doctrine called the Dormant Commerce Clause. And what it means is this aspect of the Commerce Clause, meaning you can't make rules that are beneficial to your citizens to the detriment of citizens of other state, is this Dormant Commerce Clause. And so it's dormant until a state does something like this. And as you may recall, originally here in New York, they said the conviction that the justice-involved individuals needed to get the card license had to be a New York conviction. Well, who's going to have New York convictions? Mostly New York citizens.
And card, just real quick, card is conditional adult use, recreational, retail.
Retail dispensary license. It was the very first retail license here in New York. The goal was to give it to folks that were previously incarcerated or convicted. You didn't have to necessarily be incarcerated, but previously convicted. And it was great, except that originally they had it be that you had to have a New York conviction, which violates the Dormant Commerce Clause. And so there were lawsuits about that. And originally, and this is a long time going, these lawsuits have been going for years now, but originally the Northern District of New York, the district court that first heard these things about this issue, did not want to grant an injunction related to it because they said the Dormant Commerce Clause shouldn't apply to things that are illegal, federally illegal, like cannabis. And as we already saw, the First Circuit Court which is Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont, the New England states, they already said no, Dormant Commerce Clause applies regardless of whether or not cannabis is federally illegal or not. And now we've had the Second Circuit, the appeals court over the Northern District Court here in New York, tell the district court, you did it wrong. Absolutely, Dormant Commerce Clause applies in cannabis, and now you have to go back and redo everything you did based on that. And what that means is that the plaintiffs in those cases going to get an injunction of some kind, right? And so this becomes the problem. And we've got numerous other situations like that where the regulations that our regulator created just did not do what the law said needed to be done. And so that's a gold mine for attorneys to be able to sue and get injunctions or get whatever kind of relief it is that the attorney wants. Unfortunately, we've had a lot of examples of that here in New York, and we still seem to be doing it. And just as long as we keep not having our regulations match the law and do a much better job of doing what the law says we're supposed to do, we're going to continue to have these problems.
Yeah, I like to cap on these problems. This one might not be as direct as like the law and the regulations. I know that there's a big thing right now going on about dispensary placements and possibly relocation. But I'd like for you to touch a little bit about that. But from what I understand is that there's about 40 or so, if not more, dispensaries that within the city limits, it's more than that, within the city limits, within the state, that they are considered out of zoning requirements and are being now told that they need to move. And it's not like you're in the middle of suburbia. It's not like you're in the middle of nowhere. You're in New York City. So getting a lease, paying, building it out, and trying to relocate, that seems like a lot of work. And some of these small operators that have put their heart and soul into it, how are they managing? Like, how are you helping them? Is there going to be a grandfathered in clause from the state? What have you seen on that?
Yeah, so right now it's about 150, a little more than 150. The overwhelming majority, like 98%, are in New York City. My guess is that there's probably more out there, but those are the ones that have been identified so far. And it's exactly what we were talking about before. The office added things in their regulations that aren't in the law, and they figured it out now. So there's new management at the OCM, and they did a review of everything that got done previously. And I think they realized that there's this problem, and they wanted to get ahead of it rather than wait for it to surface on its own. Now, the issue is going to be, and look, I actually think they did what they did because they thought they were helping. I think they thought, and rightly, that if they stuck to exactly what the law said, it would have been next to impossible to open more than 30 or 40 dispensaries in New York City. If they had done it exactly like the law said, just about every retail location you could imagine would have gotten knocked out based on the exact wording of the law. So it's not abnormal for regulators to think that they have the ability to have some leeway as far as what they do in their regulations. It's arguable that they went a little too far in what they did here. Everybody thinks the cannabis law is like the alcohol law, and with good reason, because most of it does look a lot like the alcohol law. It just so happens, however, that this distance requirement and how you measure how far the dispensaries are from schools and churches is one of the places where the legislature made the cannabis law, very different than the alcohol law. It's dramatically different. And if you look at it in the alcohol law, it does have the language in the alcohol law that the cannabis regulators put in their regs, that the school or church has to be on the same streets, and that the building the school or church is in has to be exclusively used as a school or a church. And that the measurement is from the door of each building to the door of the other building. It's a straight line measurement, etc. And so the regulator brought that over into the regs, and they even didn't really do that correct. They put it in the section that said municipalities can't do this, and then enforced it as if it was their own thing. But that's not what the law said. What the law said is for a school, it's 500 feet from a school ground. And by using that school grounds definition, you widely opened up what that means and where you have to do the measurement to. And so by just doing their own thing and kind of assuming into the cannabis regs the way the alcohol law works, they didn't do it right. And so that's where we are now. And so the new leadership at OCM came in and I think wanted to get ahead of it, but could they have perhaps talked to people first and said, hey, we're about to announce in a big way that lots of people, and you're going to be one of them, have a problem and try to come up with a better way to get around it. Maybe. I don't know what they're going to do here. The governor had very quickly came out and said, we're not going to let this stand. And I know that the assembly members and the senators that were deeply involved in cannabis have said they're going to fix it. Unfortunately, as you're saying now, it's about 150 stores in different states of either being open or trying to get open. I know one that was just about to have their inspection before this all came down. So, like, they already spent all the money and now they're stuck. I hope that the legislature tries to fix this. And frankly, the solution is just make it the alcohol rules. And just for folks that may or might not know, in the alcohol side, it's 200 feet from either a school or a church. In the cannabis, they made it 500 for the school. I mean, I think that's okay, but make these other things on the same street, exclusive use, add those things into the cannabis law, and that'll fix the problem for everybody that's got the problem now. Again, the challenge I think might be is, I've been hearing from folks that like, oh, we're going to get this done, it'll be easy. I don't think it's going to be that easy. And I think you're going to have you're not going to get any Republican assembly members or senators voting in favor of this. So it's got to be all Democratic support. And it was Democratic assembly members that were telling me about this on the same street thing before. So they've been getting an earful from the constituents. And I don't know how easy it's going to be to get one of those folks to vote against what they've been hearing nonstop from their constituents about, right? And so I hope they do it. If not, it's really going to be a freak show. But I think it's going to be a little harder than they think it's going to be. We'll see. There was some talk about doing it via a special session, but I don't think that's going to happen unless they bring them back because Trump cuts more of the budget in New York. New York's budget is already like $90 billion in the hole, and it's only going to be more. Maybe it's $29 billion. I can't. But just with the budget cuts from the federal government, New York's already going to have big problems. Maybe there'll be a special session. But if there's no special session, they don't even begin to deal with this until January. So that's 4.5 months from now, and a lot can happen between now and then. I get it's top of everybody's list now, but come January, it very well may not be. And like I said, I'm already hearing from people that are like not in favor of what they're going to have to try to do here. It's a mess. It's a mess because of exactly what I said at the top. The issue is making your regs not match the law. And if you do that, you're going to have problems all the way down. This is not the first time we've had problems like this related to this. We had a problem over, it says in the law, the first retail application period is supposed to be open to everyone at the same time. Is that what we did? No, we did card first. And as much as I'm in favor of card and do believe we needed to get licenses to formerly convicted folks, that's not what the law said. And there's a way you could have done it and done what the law said. But that's not what we did. All the law said is that the application had to be open. You didn't have to give the licenses to everybody at first. You just had to open the application. So you open the application, you get back all of these applications, and you say, this is all great. We got everybody's application. We're going to review all of them, but we're going to review the convicted folks first. And you'd have been fine. But by saying from the get-go, here's the application period, and we're only going to give licenses to the people with the convictions, you didn't follow the law. The law said the application period was supposed to be open to everybody at the same time.
I get that. We're going to take a minute right here to say, if you like what you heard today, please press the subscribe button. All right. Please press the like button. I always love your support here. Great insights on everything that regulatory and law stuff. Really appreciate it. And we're going to pivot and stay within that. You talked about the communication around the zoning requirements and how this is going to be a little bit of a mess for quite some time. I'd like to try to transition about the technology piece of it. Obviously, I work for Flourishin Software. We're one of the third-party integrators to the previously known as BioTrack STS system. And we got a notification about a couple of weeks ago from the state that right now it's temporarily on hold. All us operators, all of us third-party integrators have spent 6-8 months getting this prepared. And this communication came out, I think, August 6th or 7th, a couple of days after the launch on August 1st. I want to get your insight on that a little bit, just what you're seeing from how this is affecting your operators and some of your clients in New York.
If anything, it's giving them a reprieve, right? Because like when this actually launches, it's going to be a mess, which you already know. So a little
You said it, not me.
Huh?
You said it, not me.
So before I really got in depth into legal stuff, I ran software companies in the 90s and early 2000s. So like at core, I'm a software guy. If you want to have a disastrous rollout of a very large piece of software, do a bunch of customizations. Like the software comes out of the box a particular way. If you just want a disaster, take that and like customize it exactly the way you want until the count. Don't just take the out of the box piece of software and make your procedures work the way the software does. Try to make the software work the way your procedures exist, right? You know what I'm saying. That's the recipe for disaster. And that's what we're doing here. If we had just said, look, we get your software doesn't do exactly what we want, but we're going to modify how we do what we do to work with the way the software works, it'd already be up and running, right? You know I'm right. And this is the problem in any software deployment, where usually the person in charge of the organization buying the software is not a sophisticated technical person. They don't understand, they've never read the Mythical Man Month. They don't understand that while a woman can have a baby in 9 months, 9 women cannot have a baby in 1 month, right? And that's my favorite concept from Mythical Man Month. You got to do things that's going to make it easier for you, and that's not what we've done here. They took BioTrack, and they said, that's great. We already had you bastardize it for our medical folks. Now let's double down on that for the rec space, for the adult use space here in New York. And that's a recipe for disaster in any type of software rollout. And now on top of that, you've had the vendors say, and I'm reading between the lines, probably there's, what is it that they say? There's significant question about our ability to continue as an ongoing concern. In all of the disclaimers and in the financial disclaimers of publicly traded companies that are about to file Chapter 11. And I'm not saying that's what's happening here, but like very bizarre kind of situation where you then partner up with your biggest competitor, and it appears they're basically going to take, and I'm speaking of Metrc, they're basically going to take over everything you do other than your point of sale components. So that leads me to
ERP software too. I think the commercial piece of their commercial ERP software.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting at. The forward-facing, their point of sale and forward-facing marketing layer, not seed to sale layer. And so that tells me that they were looking at reading the tea leaves and realizing that they were going to hit the wall at some point in the not too distant future. So they're doing a deal with Metrc of some kind. And I still don't think anybody understands the exact details of that deal. Do you? No, nobody does. Just
all of us are just speculating what's it going to look like. RFID tags, like what is that? What does this entail? Is it a whole restrap, or is it going to be?
I just mean like, what is the deal between them? Like, basically, are you all now Metrc clients? Right? We're still waiting for all of that information. So, no real surprise for me that this has run into tremendous hiccups. Again, the hiccup I had on my bingo card was more of a technical nature. We're going to roll this out, and whoops, it just, because of all the customizations we did, they just don't work. And I'm waiting. Like, you want the nightmare scenario for my clients and the people in the industry is the system goes down. We're going to have it back up for you as soon as possible. But in the meantime, you all have to now do this manually. We get that is the rule from OCM. If the software goes down, you now have to do all this manually. So make sure you have your notebook. And so at some point, it's going to go down. And we're working our best. We're going to have this up for you as soon as possible. And 3 weeks later, we're still down. Right? I'm just saying that is the real nightmare scenario for my clients and your clients and the people in the industry. And I do think anything that spares them that another day and lets the software providers rethink what it is they're doing, and maybe let's jump back a level and let's go more out of it. I don't think that's what's going to end up happening, but I wish, but we'll see. But it's a mess. It is a mess of messes. And it certainly doesn't give anybody any confidence on the inversion, right? Of this,
Yes.
not that you can't invert with seed to sale, it's just tougher. But this was going to be everybody's golden moment. We're no longer inverting in New York State, which we all know we're doing like crazy. So just another mess, right? Just another unforced error.
You know what? We've had some great content today. You've been amazing, Jeffrey, and we're coming close to the half-hour mark. And I want to end, like I said, I end all my podcasts on one question to really get to know you as a person. When did you fall in love with cannabis? And what continues to drive that passion in your profession, despite all these legal and regulatory challenges?
Yeah, so I've been getting high since Reagan, and I've been passionate about it since then. I always thought humans have been trying to get fucked up as long as there have been humans. And we will continue to try to get fucked up as long as we love doing it, right? And the bonus for cannabis is it has a medical component to it as well. Like alcohol has no medical component to it. And for my money, alcohol has much worse outcomes for people than cannabis does. So my whole life, it's been, why do we treat this substance that A, seems to have medical benefits, and B, even if it doesn't, which I believe it does, the people that consume it seem to me to be much worse off or much better off than the people that are consuming alcohol. And then really the justice aspect of it really hit me. It's bad enough that we're treating this substance differently than this other substance, alcohol, that I think is much worse for us. So that was one. But then if we're going to treat it differently, that we then treat people that look like me dramatically differently when they are caught with it. And that, to me, I am not a person that you bring unfair situations too lightly, right? Like when things are unfair, I am not just sit back and we got to accept it. That's the way it is. When things are unfair, I want to beat you up with a baseball bat. And for me, my baseball bat is litigation or lawsuits or filing 440 motions to get convictions expunged, right? And that has lit my fire and will continue to light my fire as long as that extends in being a problem. And best I can tell in the United States, that's going to be a problem as long as I'm going to be alive, because there's plenty of jurisdictions still doing it wrong. And then on top of that, I just like consuming cannabis. As I tell people, I'm a drug addict, not an alcoholic. And some people get upset with me with using that term, the term drug, with it. Come on, oxygen is a drug, and everyone on planet Earth is addicted to it, okay? So this idea that somehow drug is Tylenol, is Advil, those are drugs. Caffeine, we need to get our heads out of drug automatically equals bad, right? So I've always been a drug addict, not an alcoholic. I certainly don't mind having a fine adult beverage every now and then. But cannabis is my consumption device of choice. I love how I feel on it. I love going to concerts and listening to music on it. I love hooking up with my lady friend on it. Like we're both big cannabis fans. We're growing cannabis now at my apartment, and she's the chief horticulturist. I love that aspect of it. So like these aspects of it are wonderful as far as I'm concerned. Should people that are prone to schizophrenia in their family or have other issues related to that? No, I'm not one of these people that says cannabis is the end all be all and every person on planet Earth ought to be smoking weed. I'm not on that path. There are absolutely people that should not be consuming. I don't want my bus driver consuming right before he drives my bus. I don't want the guy operating a backhoe operating it. There are safety issues, and I do agree. It definitely makes you a little less kind of in the moment. So in the same sense, it's not a ticket for everybody to do it all the time. People that have medical conditions that are negatively, negatively indicated. There's a word in the medical profession where it's counterindicated, right? Should not be consuming. People that are going to have to deal with safety situations should not be consuming in the moment before we do it. And just let me side pod, because I know we want to wrap up here, but it's like this whole idea of testing people for cannabis and the test being able to detect what they did up to 30 days ago. When we as a society say that's what we're going to do for drug testing for cannabis, it just goes to show how unserious we are about the safety. Everybody says, oh, we're drug testing these people for safety. No, we're not. The drug test for cannabis shows what they did 30 days ago. Has no bearing whatsoever on what their condition is right now before they drive the bus or before they operate the backhoe. If we as Americans wanted to take it seriously as far as this being a safety concern, we would field sobriety test all of these people in the 5 minutes before they started their day, before they started driving the bus or operating the backhoe. The fact that the powers that hate cannabis see this as, oh, we got to drug test everybody for this thing that has no idea to show us, are we being safe right now in real time? It's a joke. And so if we were really serious about safety, we would field sobriety test the people that are going to enter into these places where safety matters. And so it's just fighting that kind of battle invigorates me. When we're doing it wrong in our society, I'm the loudest person that says you're doing it wrong, and this is how you should do it if you are serious about it. And so that's always going to fuel my fire, and it will till the day I die.
Jeffrey, this is amazing. Thank you so much. Like I said, great stories, great content. And if people want to get a hold of you, Jeffrey Hoffman and Associates, I know you have your live podcast on LinkedIn. Ask me anything about cannabis legalization in New York at 4:20 on Wednesdays. But if they need to get a hold of you via email,
yes, the email address is info@420jurist. That's 420jurist.com. So if you want to email me, but LinkedIn is the best way to get me. Come watch the podcast. Come send me a connection request. Send me a message on LinkedIn. That's where we do it. I post about cannabis all day, every day when stuff happens in the industry, and that's the place to get it.
Awesome. So again, I said you had some great perspective, and to sign off here, thank you for everyone for listening to and watching Flourishin in Cannabis. My name is Vien Trinh. My name is Vien, your host. And as Jeffrey said, stay healthy, stay happy, and stay high responsibly. Thanks a lot, Jeffrey. Take care, man. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, sir. Thanks for having me.